Hi everyone. Welcome to another Like a Ninja stream. I am Robin, the community engagement manager, uh, sitting in for Jonathan today. But because of that, we have two just absolute uh, pros here to help me make this as great a stream as all the others. So we're joined today by our field CTO, Jeff Hunter, and product manager, Josh Lambert. And we're going to talk about integration, specifically the new Zendesk and ServiceNow integrations, and how to take advantage of those like a ninja. So go ahead and take it away. Um, Josh, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Robin. Appreciate it. And I think contractually, somebody on a like a ninja stream has to say hello, my fellow ninjas. So Jonathan's not here. I got to make sure I fill in and I say the magic phrase. So hello, my fellow ninjas. Welcome to this discussion of ServiceNow and Zendesk integrations. This is integrations that have been out for a little while now. We had them in a beta state late last year in the fall, and then in December and January with the 7.0 release, they both went GA. So anybody who wanted to take advantage of them, you now can take advantage of them. And I always like to point out that we have a lot of integrations. We're pretty committed to having a variety of integrations so that you can bring the tools that you use to NinjaOne to do what you want them to do. We don't want to be prescriptive about having to use our ticketing tool or only using certain products. We want to really try to make this a place where you can bring what's already in your ecosystem and what works really well for you. And we are also very committed, as Josh can speak to actively maintaining and improving those integrations over time. So even though the Zendesk and ServiceNow integrations were launched officially in 7.0, that doesn't mean that we're stopping. Josh will probably speak to some of the cool things that we have planned for the 9.0 release, specifically with the ServiceNow integration, and then kind of what the future looks like with regards to our ITSM integrations. Oh, hello, Robert. How are you? To get started, we didn't want to do any PowerPoint. We wanted to keep it very focused in the product. So I figured I would go ahead and do a brief demonstration of first the Zendesk integration and talk a little bit about Zendesk, and then we'll go ahead and shift over into the ServiceNow integration. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll kick things off. Try to share the right window here. Okay. So here I am in an environment where we've already set up the integration. All of our integrations, you're going to set them up under the apps exchange, which you can see right here on the left-hand side once you're in the administration menu. And you would go ahead and add in one of these integrations. You can actually see some of the ones that we're not using in this environment. Some of our PSA integrations like Acello, Autotask, and ConnectWise Manage. Going down a little further, you'll see the ServiceNow integration, which is set up in a different environment for demonstration purposes. But because we've already set up the Zendesk integration, we can see it right here. So all you'll need to do is to enable that integration. It's really easy to set up. You just need to type in your instance name right here. And then as long as you're logged into Zendesk already, you just go over into Zendesk and you complete this setup inside of Zendesk. So very easy to get that set up. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what we would use the integration for. So there's a couple primary facets that you would use with Zendesk. First and foremost, I would say it's conditions. So anything inside of NinjaOne that is detecting and then alerting something, a condition or a compound condition, that can then become a ticket inside of Zendesk. But you can also do this for activities. And so one of the common ones we would see this used for would be a failed backup. So, hey, backup job has failed. We want to know about it. We could create a ticket in NinjaOne ticketing, but in this case, we're talking about Zendesk, so we would create a ticket in Zendesk. You'll see an option here for creating a ticket and creating and closing a ticket. And there's sometimes some confusion around how this functionality works. Create and close a ticket, this is something you want to use for tracking purposes. It's for things that you want to have a ticket logged for, but a technician doesn't actually need to be actively engaged and working on that ticket. You really just want it for tracking purposes. And so one thing I think this is ideal for is scheduled automations. Let's say you're running some sort of weekly diagnostics. Maybe you want to have a ticket tied to that. This could be for billing purposes, or it could just be that you want to have a historical record that this has ran. And so we can actually scroll down, and then you'll see we can create a ticket whenever this is going to run. And so for me, if I cared about a weekly maintenance task or a monthly maintenance task, and I wanted to have a record of it, I would go ahead and create and close a ticket. And that way, as the action happens, a ticket gets created and then immediately closed. It's not going to go onto your ticket board where it actively needs to be addressed by a technician. You can just go ahead and have that historical record in your ITSM tool without having to go hunting for it when you do, in fact, need it. Now, let's talk a little bit about conditions here. You'll see that we're detecting a couple different things here. Let's look at a pretty basic example here, which would be the print spooler service. So if I click on this, you'll see that we've got a similar option here to create a ticket. And in this case, I'm using the create a ticket option. And this is because a technician needs to actively look at this issue whenever the ticket gets created. It actually matters. It's important. It's operational. A human being needs to look at this and decide whether or not we've got an issue or not. And what we can do to help direct traffic here is modify a ticket template. I'll show you how to create these in just a second, but essentially a ticket template is a way for you to direct traffic on where the ticket goes inside of Zendesk. So what status should the ticket have? Is it new, or is it in an open state, or is it in a paused state? Do you want to assign a tag? And so we can go ahead and assign a certain tag. We might use a certain form. Basically, you're predefining the attributes of the ticket once it gets created, while also controlling the behavior of the ticket when there is a change in state. And that's a really important part here, is the sync in between Zendesk and NinjaOne with your tickets. And so what I mean by that is, in this example here, we're detecting that we have a problem. And so step one, we've got an issue. Let's create a ticket. And so step two, we create a ticket down here inside of Zendesk. Step three is attempting to fix the issue without having to actually become too engaged in the process. And so in this case, this is pretty basic. A service goes down. I want to start that service back up. Would be great to not have a human being involved in a pretty basic action there. And so on the right-hand side, we can go ahead and run a script in response to this issue. So in this case, service is down. Let's go ahead and find the spooler and start it back up. And so that's step three is the remediation action. And step four is, did it work or not? Did it actually do what we expected it to do? And so that's determined by the reset of the alert. You've got two different options here for resetting. You can reset on a time basis. So in this case, after 4 hours, the alert would then get reset. It doesn't really care about the state of the service. The service could still be down. It's a dumb reset, for lack of a better term. Now, what happens if the alert is still valid and you reset it? So up here, we have this setting right here, trigger again if condition is still true after reset. And so what this means is if you are like me and you fat finger something and you accidentally reset an alert that you did not mean to reset, it's going to go ahead and rate. It's going to be like whack-a-mole. The alert will pop back up and say, hey, I'm still a problem. You still need to pay attention to me. And so this gives us a little bit of a safeguard here. If I accidentally reset the alert or it resets on a time basis, if it's still a problem, it then is going to pop its head back up and say the alert is still active. And so you can configure using the ticket template whether this is going to create an entirely new ticket in Zendesk or whether it will append to the existing ticket, assuming that it is not already closed. Now, my preference here in most cases is to use the when no longer met option. And so what this means is the Ninja agent is going to take an active look at the root cause of the condition, which in this case means that the print spooler is down. When the spooler is not in a down state, that indicates the alert is no longer met. It's no longer in the alert status. And so we'll go ahead and reset that alert, and that will clear the alert from the dashboard so you don't have basically a fake issue where you think something's wrong, and in fact, the issue has already been resolved by this automatic remediation on the right-hand side over here. So the ticket template, if we back out of here and go back into our Zendesk settings, the ticket template allows us to control the behavior of what happens when the alert is reset. So if we go into our Zendesk settings right here and then go into our ticket template, you can see I've created a close loop template. And so this means exactly what it says. I want to close the loop whenever I have an alert in NinjaOne that has been resolved. And whether that's because a technician resolved it or because a script ran and fixed the underlying cause of the issue, I want to go ahead and impact the corresponding ticket that's in Zendesk. And I'm probably going to want to go ahead and close it out, solve it out in some way, so I no longer have to look at it or think about it. And so here with the ticket template, we can name it. We can define what happens when we create the ticket. What's the status? What's the type of ticket? Is it a question, an incident, or a problem? What group should it go to? So these would be groups inside of Zendesk. And then we have the priority, what tags I may want to assign. And then we get over to the behavior of the condition when, or I should say the ticket, when the condition that created the ticket is reset for some reason. And so you have an option of doing nothing. Let's say a server goes offline. I'll say I probably am not doing anything with that. I kind of want that to still be active. I want a technician to go and look and find out why that server was offline. But for basic alerts, it makes sense. You want to go ahead and change the status. And so if the ticket is in a new state, for example, which would typically mean that a technician hasn't touched it yet, hey, I want to go ahead and move this into a solved state. We're done with it. The issue is resolved. I just want to go ahead and solve this out, and it will no longer be something a technician needs to look at. You could also do this if this is in an open state. So maybe when the ticket is brand new, but then also when a technician could have already started working on it, we may want to go ahead and then also solve it out. It's all going to be dependent on these ticket statuses that you create inside of Zendesk. And your overall technician help desk workflow. That's going to impact kind of the decisions that you make right here. And then we have the action of what happens when the condition retriggers. And so we saw that earlier. What happens if you're using a time-based reset? And so the alert resets, but then fires again because the underlying alert issue is still valid. It's still in effect. And so here we can go ahead and define everything that happens as a part of that. Maybe we want to go ahead and create a tag that indicates that this is a re-triggered ticket. And inside of Zendesk, that might give us a better capability to track over time how many of these conditions are re-triggering. How many of them are being solved kind of on the first touch, and then how many of them are something that kind of fire continuously and still need a technician to deal with. And that might be able to show you where you have recurring problems that have underlying issues that need to be addressed. And that happens a lot of times when you're treating a symptom rather than kind of the underlying cause of the issue you're having. And then the last thing to talk about here is the ticket in Zendesk. What happens when you modify that? So far, we've been talking extensively about what happens to an alert in Ninja and how that impacts the corresponding ticket in Zendesk. Let's look at the inverse. What happens in Ninja when I, let's say, close a ticket out inside of Zendesk? And again, you completely control that right here. You can either do nothing, you leave the corresponding alert in NinjaOne open and active, but then that means that a technician is going to have to both solve out in Zendesk while also resetting the alert in NinjaOne. That kind of seems like a recipe for stuff to get missed. So my preference, I think, in most cases, would be to reset the condition, keep things in sync, solve a ticket in Zendesk, close the alert in NinjaOne. Everything has a nice one-to-one linear experience. So let's talk a little bit about what happens in Zendesk when we actually go ahead and create this ticket. So I'm going to go into Zendesk, and here you can see that I had this alert trigger, the same alert that we were looking at earlier, the spooler. I intentionally stopped it, and then we went ahead and that created the ticket. And you can see here that the automation to fix it came in pretty shortly after that, and therefore we have this condition that has reset. So the issue is fixed, and we no longer have to worry about it. One thing that's really nice is you do have an option here to launch NinjaOne Remote. So if I click here, this would actually take me directly to the device inside of NinjaOne. So I'd be able to use my remote tools to upload or download a file or maybe restore a backup. But then I also have the option here to just go directly into NinjaOne Remote. So I can go ahead and click this here. I'm realizing now I didn't share my screen correctly. I didn't share the entire display. I only shared the Chrome window, so you're not going to be able to see Ninja Remote here. But trust me, it did open. It asked me if I wanted to open Ninja Remote. So it's really convenient there to just be able to click and then have it automatically open a NinjaOne Remote session and have you instantly be inside of the device. I've talked for a while now, Josh. Any thoughts, any commentary you would like to offer on our Zendesk integration?
I think you've done great. Honestly, you crushed it. The one thing I'd call out is the way that we obtain persistence with these tickets. Like, how do we keep a track of what NinjaOne device is attributed to a particular Zendesk ticket? It's pretty simple, really. It's not hyper advanced. If you see in Jeff's left-hand submenu, bottom option, there's a ticket field, NinjaOne device ID. That's exactly it. You can configure that, Robert. So if you have a retrigger, when that happens, that's a behavior you can control.
Yeah, and you can see that right here when it retriggers. Do you want to create a new ticket or do you want to add it to the existing one? If it's not already closed.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to call out, is just make sure that ticket field is there. Otherwise, you're not going to have the persistence. Yeah.
So one other item that I would mention here is we spoke about the ability to create tickets whenever scheduled automations are ran within NinjaOne. And I spoke primarily about the concept of using a maintenance script or series of scripts that run. And you might want to track that over time. But this is also a really good way to track high risk scripts that your technicians are running. So if there are certain actions, certain scripts or automations that your technicians are running and you want to have a ticket created whenever they do run them, what you can do is actually add the automations in here. And so this could be, let's say it could be something dangerous. It's the format C command. For whatever reason, you've written that into a script and you want to give somebody the ability to access that. But you have a high risk action. You can actually add that in here and you don't need to actually have a schedule. You can set it to a schedule of none. And so you can go ahead and have this set to a schedule of none. It'll only run when it's run ad hoc by a technician. And you can tie this to the creation of a ticket. And so what you can do with user permissions is essentially deny somebody access to the category of script, but giving them the ability to access and run the automation as a scheduled automation within policies. So that way, if they're installing a particular application, there's a corresponding ticket that is created with that action to install the application, instead of it just being an activity inside of NinjaOne. So that's a bit of a niche case there, but I think if you've got certain high risk actions that you want to have better logging around, better ticketing around, that is a nice little option that you have inside of NinjaOne, is to create the ticket and essentially configuring NinjaOne to have high risk actions set within policies, and that'll give you more granular tracking inside of Zendesk or whatever other ticketing system that you're using. I don't see any other questions here on Zendesk, so I figured we could go ahead and move over into a different environment and talk a little bit about ServiceNow. But if you have any questions about Zendesk, please feel free to pop those in the chat. We should have plenty of time to circle back around to questions near the end. Now, the setup of the ServiceNow integration is very, very similar to Zendesk, but there are some additional considerations here to take into account. And I would say the first one is that your incident templates, these are actually not created inside of NinjaOne. You would create these templates, these incident templates, you would create these inside of ServiceNow, and then the API integration with NinjaOne and ServiceNow retrieves those templates, brings them back into NinjaOne so that you can add them here. And so you still use them the exact same way as you would in Zendesk, or with the Zendesk integration, I should say. But in contrast to how we create the ticket templates in NinjaOne for the Zendesk side, we do the inverse for ServiceNow. We create the templates in ServiceNow, and then we're able to retrieve those into NinjaOne and set them whenever we have the option to create a ticket.
And there's a reason for that. It's predominantly because ServiceNow incidents you can configure ServiceNow however you want. There's any number of fields that you want to set. I'll tack on to Jeff's point, like, it's very different than what we've historically done. We got a ton of feedback in 7.0 and 8.0 that you need the configurability for retriggers, resets, even callbacks. And so what we've actually introduced in 9.8 and even more in 10.0 is that traditional ticket template. How can you do a ticket template and support the incident templates? Well, what we've done is taken that very same, we call it a modal, let's call it your ticket template wizard that we just looked at in Zendesk, and we've let you select a incident template as the basis of your ticket template. So you can say, okay, within template X, I want the priority set to this. I want my impact set to this, urgency set to that. And the reason we have done it that way is because you will have custom fields, but we'll still be able to support your priority matrix, however you set that up in ServiceNow. So it's a nice feature coming, so you're not left with static fields.
Yeah, 100%. And then another thing to be aware of with the ServiceNow integration that doesn't really apply to the Zendesk integration is the CMDB element of ServiceNow. So on the Zendesk side of things, if you already have an asset created in Zendesk, NinjaOne will try to match to that asset. But today, we're not going to create an asset on the Zendesk side. We are linking to existing assets, but we're not creating our own assets inside of Zendesk. And again, that's the functionality today as of 8.1 dot whatever. However, with ServiceNow, it is a little different. We actually do both create and match to what ServiceNow would call configuration items on their side. And we can see that here, the configuration item mapping. And this is something that should look pretty familiar to anybody who's used maybe the ConnectWise Manage integration. But essentially what you're doing here is taking the device roles that we have inside of NinjaOne, and we are then going to convert those into whatever class of device they are inside of ServiceNow. And again, this is pulling the classes that you've defined within ServiceNow, so this should reflect what's in your actual environment. I am not retrieving any because my instance of this expired. So this is actually no longer tied to an active developer instance of ServiceNow. And that's why things are not being retrieved as they would in an actual production environment. So here we can see that we have all of our common device types here that are linked to the ServiceNow class. And so this means that we're going to go ahead and actually, well, first of all, we're going to try to match to an existing asset that's already there. We don't want to create duplicate assets. That seems like that would be a nightmare. So we will go ahead and use the reconciliation engine that ServiceNow offers to match. And I believe that's based off of serial number and maybe a couple other attributes as well, Josh.
And you can configure your reconciliation rules however you want. So by default in 8.0, we set a discovery source, which is like the normal delineator for both who has the ACE card of latest data if you're syncing multiple discovery sources. We currently use import set. Within 9.0, we'll actually have a custom option for you of NinjaOne. So you can say, oh, I want my devices being synced from this source as more frequent, and then I want NinjaOne for these types of CIs to actually be the overruler. So there's a lot of flexibility within reconciliation rules, but you get to configure it as a ServiceNow admin or within ServiceNow.
And that kind of goes back to what you mentioned earlier, which is that ServiceNow is incredibly customizable. You can do pretty much whatever you want to it if you have the know-how and the time to configure it appropriately.
One thing while we're on this as well is to highlight that you may have different ServiceNow classes, like Jeff was alluding to earlier, that you have specified out in your CI class hierarchy. I think it's now called CI class manager. Just know that you can create multiple mappings here. And I saw Jeff just about to jump onto the organization sync, or you can create multiple within this particular mapping, and you can assign different mappings to different orgs. So a particular use case I'm thinking of here, Jeff, and you'll know exactly what, as I say it, is when you're dealing with virtual desktops, because they could come up as Windows Desktop, they can come as Windows Workstation, maybe it's Azure Virtual Desktop, and it comes up as a Hyper-V virtual machine. We do a good job of assigning device roles, but you might just have something custom in place.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then when we do click over into the organization sync, at this point, we can go ahead and then define what those mappings are going to be. So if you're going to map for one organization differently than another organization, you absolutely have that flexibility. Let's look at an existing one right here. Very simple organization. What mapping do you want to use? And then can this create incidents? And so we'll go ahead and allow that. And if we wanted to add in other ones, we would have that option. Of course, only one organization in this environment right now, but I can create, as Josh mentioned, all those additional mappings to make sure that everything lines up the way that you would expect from NinjaOne into ServiceNow. And then we'll see the actual sync here. This was relatively recently set up, so I don't actually think we've synced anything over. But we would see the sync history here of when ServiceNow and NinjaOne are syncing to make sure that all of that CMDB information is up to date.
Yeah, by default, we sync every 24 hours at about 3 a.m. But again, because we love hammering this point home, the sync is effectively a ServiceNow pull. So if you want to sync more frequently, you can. You can actually configure it within the NinjaOne configuration component in ServiceNow. And I recommend taking it down as low as every 6 hours. You can go more frequent, but you'll start to get diminishing marginal returns. If you start writing a lot to the CMDB, you may experience slowness, you may experience more clashes, but you're welcome to. The option is there. There's also the ability to do ad hoc syncs. So if you know you've just done a big rollout of devices with NinjaOne, you want them within CMDB. You don't want to wait to the following day or 5 hours and 59 minutes. Have your ServiceNow administrator execute the sync straight away.
So this covers the basic setup of the ServiceNow integration. Obviously, there's going to be more configuration in ServiceNow to get this going, based on the fact that you have to do a lot of that configuration in ServiceNow.
I've got a good one for you, Jeff. I've got a best practice. I've got it.
Oh, we love that.
Finally.
We love that.
If you go to General and Activities, General full left-hand submenu, something we added quite recently, it's an 8.0-esque feature. You'll see that we have ITSM PSA integration about 3/4 of the way down as an activity. So in a worst case scenario where something changes in your ServiceNow environment and you want to know, hey, this API credential expired, we rotated the password, now that user doesn't have access anymore, and those happened to be your integration credentials, we'll tell you when that integration breaks. And that's a big deal because you don't want to suddenly be 1,000+ assets out of sync. You don't want to be finding out, oh, I think I'm up to date with my tickets, but you're actually not. Myriad of different issues. With this, we can work with our notification channels component of NinjaOne and let you know through Teams or Slack or whatever tool of your choice, something broke, go check it.
Yeah, and so you can see here, ticket creation has failed, and then we also have just the general integration status as being unhealthy. Maybe the status is degraded, maybe the credentials have failed. And as Josh mentioned, you can have this sent into a notification channel. So Microsoft Teams, Slack, PagerDuty, an email address, a webhook, an SMS text message if you wanted to. And you can also use NinjaOne's built-in notifications for this. Obviously, you're not going to have the ability to create a ticket in ServiceNow through the API connection in this case. So you could go ahead and have an email routed to ServiceNow, though, if you still wanted it to appear on your ticket board.
The wonders of out-of-band communication. It can save you bacon, though. It's worth it.
It absolutely can. And I'll say, in general, I am a fan of the concept of having a lot of layers to let you know when something has gone wrong. Like I want something to remind me. I mentioned the concept earlier of having conditions kind of re-trigger and pop their heads back up in case they're accidentally reset. Kind of in a similar case here. When is the integration not working right? Having that workaround, that out-of-band communication to let you know when something's wrong is absolutely critical in the ITSM world. Now, You create the tickets the exact same way we saw with Zendesk. So same example here, print spooler is down. I will create a ticket. I have that same option to create a ticket or create and close a ticket, just like we talked about with Zendesk. I have my ticket templates, just like we saw earlier, to determine the behavior of the ticket or the incident inside of ServiceNow. You can also do this through scheduled automations. You can also do this through activities. So, for example, if we wanted to go ahead and create a ticket whenever a threat has been detected by CrowdStrike, we can again go ahead and use the create a ticket option to get that going. However, ServiceNow is going to have an additional way to capture tickets that Zendesk does not currently support, and that is user submitted tickets. So if we go into the general option and then branding, we have the Systray option. And if I enable the Systray here, add it in, I can customize this to my heart's content, build out a menu tree of options for my end users, customize the logo and what the tooltip text is. And what I want to do in this case is actually generate a help request. Some of you may be familiar with this already. If you look on my bottom right here, you'll see the Systray, the NinjaOne agent. I can right click on that and then hit Service Desk Request. And so right here, this captures a few basic bits of information from the end user. What problem are you having? Contact information. You can attach an image if you want. You can have this remember your details so that the end user doesn't have to fill this out every single time that they come to submit a request. And then on the NinjaOne side, you can configure this to go into the PSA integration, which in this case would actually be the ITSM integration of ServiceNow. And so this will go ahead and create an incident in ServiceNow. It'll include all this information that we see down here. Now, some of this information is entered by the end user. And so you can see where it says form dot. All of those indicate something that's captured from the end user form. But everything else that we see below that, what I am going to highlight now, this is all pulled via environment variables and Ninja native metrics. You can add additional environment variables here at the very bottom if there's more information that you want to capture and include in the body of the incident that gets created in ServiceNow. So this is a nice way to capture user submitted tickets. But of course, you may already be using some other sort of tool that integrates with ServiceNow to capture those user submitted tickets. But if you are not already, this is a nice option. But of course, is always contingent on essentially affecting end user behavior to adopt this as a process, which is always a bit of a dicey proposition.
Systray's a good one. It's a really good one, actually. It's a unsung hero, I think. Just sure, it's not an email in. They can right click, fields are there, off you go. Nice.
And then one thing that we didn't really talk about with the Systray, and I'll actually go to a different environment here to showcase this, would be the ability to maybe give the end user options to take care of tickets before they actually need to submit one. So if you have a lot of recurring tickets, one that we hear about all the time is like self-service application installs. You can come down here and actually build out a list of what automations somebody is able to install from the Systray. And so right here, just for a basic example, we've got Google Chrome. We've actually uploaded this into NinjaOne using the install application script. And so any applications that you want to include here, you can. This is a really nice way to give the end user the ability to execute actions with more elevated credentials, but without exposing those credentials. And so in this case, we're installing Google Chrome machine-wide under the system context with which the NinjaOne agent operates under. And so we're able to run an action as system without giving the end user a local admin credential or something to elevate themselves. We're not exposing anything. They're just able to execute this action safely and securely. You can kind of see an adaptation of this where we're running a system performance check so that if the end user is complaining about issues with their device, they can run this and we have a bit of a snapshot of what the state of the device was at the time that an end user reported an issue. So not really related specifically to ServiceNow, but I think this is in general a help desk conversation. And so being able to alleviate the help desk in any way is always a good thing. One thing that I also like, let's say that you have let's say people are calling in, and it's not necessarily that they're using a web portal or that they're submitting a ticket from the machine using that help request form. in that case, we have the information. We know what device they're originating from. But I can't tell you how many times I have had somebody call me up and basically be completely unable to describe to me what machine they were working on. And so being able to have easily identifiable information that somebody can pull up and read off to you on the phone, that really helps, especially if you're on the road like I was a lot of the time. And so in this case, I can add in these variables here, like let's say the host name of the device. And so when somebody calls me and says, hey, my computer's not working right, I can say, okay, what's the name of your device? They probably will not know. And you can say, well, go to the Systray, right click here, click the About section, and then read off what it says on the top line. And I can then use the global search bar in Ninja to quickly find that and start taking action on the device. So again, not strictly related to ServiceNow or Zendesk integrations, but I think as a help desk workflow process, you're going to have people who call up the help desk, and this is a nice way to kind of have something in your back pocket and to be prepared for when somebody does need some help identifying their machine.
That's going to happen as well. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Hopefully not all the time, but there's one or two where you need it. Yeah, that's a great call out.
I think my favorite one was somebody who called me about their computer not working. And I said, Victor, is the computer there? And he looked and he goes, it's not. Did somebody steal it? And I said, no, I took it. I had to repair it. And so he's calling me to complain about his computer not working because he's just shaking the mouse. He really didn't have any concept beyond that of how to turn it on. Always one of my favorite stories.
Priceless. Yeah. No, I always like the positioning of like, oh, you know what? The power cable often comes loose on these things. Make sure it's plugged in properly. Oh yeah, look, it came loose. I'm like, uh-huh.
Who would have
These
thought?
things happen.
Now let's go into ServiceNow. Well, I was going to go into ServiceNow real quick. The perils of logging in too early for a webinar.
Yeah.
So now, so here we are in ServiceNow. Let's go ahead and try to find some incidents. I will confess that I am not a ServiceNow expert. So if I am clicking around, oh, did I go? I see right there.
Yeah.
I went to the wrong spot. It's under Service Desk, not the self-service. And so there we go. This is our ticket board. We're seeing all of our tickets that have come in. We can click into this right here. Again, very similar to the body of any email alert you've ever received. We can see the description up here. We've got access to the body of the ticket. And then if we go down a little bit further, you're going to see the actual affected CIs here. And so I don't think it's synced over in this environment. We kind of set this up last second. But I believe what should happen here is you'll see the affected CIs here, and you're going to be able to click into that. And then that's going to give you a nice launch Ninja remote button so that you can actually do the exact same thing we saw in Zendesk and start a NinjaOne remote session directly from within ServiceNow.
Exactly. So one of the cool features coming in 9.0 as well, just some feedback that we got, was right now, this ticket was created, we took the activity and we wrote a description out of what triggered the condition to occur, and in this case, CPU utilization. What happens when CPU utilization goes down? Do you want a public comment to update that? Would you prefer it coming in as a work note? That new concept of templates will let you select that. So you can have these more transient issues, not create as many public comments, and keep incidents focused on what they're mapped for. And at the top of Jeff's screen here as well, you'll see the priority setting where it's grayed out. If you scroll up a little more, Jeff, in that ticket template, you'll be able to set your impact and urgency. So priority is a matrix within ServiceNow. For those who aren't familiar, little lesson. Priority is set based off of impact and urgency. It's kind of an ITIL thing. And so with new ticket templates in 9.0 with ServiceNow, you'll be able to have those set for you. So that's how we'll support prioritization. And Jeff highlighted if there's multiple affected CIs, we'll have the list there. But if you see on the left-hand side, just above the short description, there is an option for configuration item. If Ninja creates the incident for you and we attribute the CI, assuming, of course, I haven't broken Jeff's instance, which I definitely did today, to the right of that lookup button, you'll get a Ninja logo, a little green and dark blue N. When you click that, you get the same functionality that Jeff was demoing earlier. It'll jump you into a remote session, assuming that you have the role-based access controls for that CI.
I was going to see if I can get lucky here and find one that might work, but
well, we could do one that's already linked.
do you have any idea where one is, or should I let you share?
I'm in the same instance as you. I'm actually going and triggering a scheduled import just to see if it'll kick the devices across for us. You know what we could do in the meantime? I know it's a hard pivot, but we could talk about in Zendesk the companion app on the sidebar. I don't know if we went through that. And also covering off, so if you hit the, what is it, the 9 icons on the far right-hand side. Yeah. And if you refresh. Now, we attribute an asset, a NinjaOne device. In this particular case, like I mentioned, we have the field on the left-hand side. But if you hit, maybe we attributed the wrong device, or you want to jump to a different device that happens to be online, because in this case, this one's offline, you want to remote to something. Jeff, if you hit change and start typing in Josh, you actually get a full list of all those devices. This is a live information as well. And you can select that first online one. And you'll notice we have our Ninja remote button. So there's similar functionality between it all. Assuming I've given Jeff nice access to my machine. Oh, internal workbench one, there you go. It would actually trigger your remote session and pop it up. So no platform tool hopping like we are right now between ServiceNow and Zendesk, but keeps your support agents in one place.
No, that's very convenient. Thank you for helping me set that up on the fly.
No, you're good. And you can pin it, and that's, yeah.
That's how it goes. There's a lot of Josh Lamberts there.
Yeah, that is over 7,000 linked clones. I tell you what, I've got another good one we can go through while we're in Zendesk. If you hit the 4 boxes in the top right to the left of your avatar icon, you go to Admin Center, bottom option. Something I see happen fairly frequently with Zendesk setups, because the flows are created around not having an integration with Ninja, and then suddenly have the integration with Ninja. If you select objects and rules on the left-hand submenu, penultimate option, and then you were to look at forms, actually, in fact, it's a good idea to show this first, but you'll get a list of your different forms, and you could select into the default ticket form, for example. You can just click into it. So you have, in a production Zendesk instance, you'll have a number of different fields here. In our example, obviously, we've added the NinjaOne device ID for the integration, but you could have something in here that you normally expect your agents to, support agents to fill in order to close a ticket. What that looks like, just in case it's not something you administer every day, is, Jeff, if you click fields directly below forms on the left-hand side option, and just click into any of the fields, there's an option that trips everybody up, tripped me up when I first did it too. And underneath description, you'll see an option required to solve a ticket. I am not ashamed to say that we definitely troubleshot for at least a week a beta user's integration. We couldn't figure out why, when we reset or re-triggered using a ticket template, why it wouldn't work. Turns out, if you have that set, even the API can't overrule ticket closures. So just make sure you've got that one unticked in the particular form that you're having us use. Otherwise, you'll never be able to close out tickets with Ninja.
That is a very good call out. I can foresee that also being something that would bog me down for days, if not weeks.
That is the life of IT. And then you find the person who's like, oh, I found a solution, close the forum topic, and like, no, what was the solution? That's what I feel inclined to tell you.
That's 50% of all forum posts, and I've solved it. Goodbye.
Yeah. What else do you want to go through?
Honestly, I feel like we have covered pretty much everything with the integration. If you did know where there's a configuration item in ServiceNow that is actually linked, or a ticket with the configuration item linked, we can show that. But I think we've showed pretty much everything with these integrations.
Yeah, that's the benefit, that they all follow like a very similar pattern, right? Once you've shown reset, retrigger, callback, Ninja Remote flows the same way, makes life a lot easier.
As somebody who has to explain it, yes, it definitely makes my life easier for sure.
Thank you guys so much for going through these. I think that there's some really good step-by-step instructions here. We will make sure to put this in our Discord, and I'm going to put up our little QR code right here, right on top of my face. So just who needs me, the community manager? Here's our community. Scan that QR code and you can join the Discord. Josh and Jeff are permanent fixtures in there and love to answer questions and love to talk through nitty-gritty things as well. So there'll be constant resources for you as along with link to this recording and to our amazing community. So thank you guys again for joining us. Thank you so much, Jeff and Josh, for walking us through these integrations. And we'll see you ninjas next time. What's that?
Goodbye, my fellow ninjas.